This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a Revox B225. This unit was sent to me by a viewer who asked if I was up for the challenge of repairing it for him, and of course I jumped at the chance. Adjusted for inflation, this unit would have set you back over $3,000 when it was launched in 1984, but you were getting a pretty special player for the money. Revox, a Swiss company, specialised in high-end reel-to-reel tape recorders, but this CD player was anything but an afterthought. This is the very opposite of discreet hi-fi, unapologetically owning its space and refusing to compromise with its esoteric design. But what's actually wrong with it? According to the owner, the tray mechanism isn't working properly due to a suspected broken gear, and the display sometimes flickers as well. I haven't yet been able to test it because it has an unconventional power connection, and I don't have a cord that fits it. Of course I'd like to repair this player for the owner, but on a selfish level, I just really want to see it in action. I think the owner himself tried to repair this because it arrived with no screws in the back cover. I actually fitted this screw myself just to keep the cover in place while I was filming the introduction. But if I remove that, the top cover will just spring off. And you'll see it's quite a modular design. It looks more like a PC case with these vertical cards that can all be removed and serviced individually. So for this, the transport is built into the tray and the entire thing slides out when you open the drawer. You can probably see from this cutout here that it's a Philips swing arm mechanism. On the back of the disc clamp we've got a sort of elastic band that's been cable tied, and that was looped through this hole in this plate at the back. So there's meant to be a spring in there, and we've got a rack and pinion here for the tray mechanism. I suppose the first order of business is to get some power into this unit. I'm wondering what the safest way is to do that. I could just crocodile clip some leads on these terminals here, but that seems pretty dangerous. So I'm going to have a rummage in my parts bin and see what I can come up with. Well, since this is only a temporary supply, I connected this old power cord to these spade terminals with Vargo style connectors. They're pretty solid, and these should just slide over the pins. And they're actually pretty tight, they're not going to fall out. So let's plug it in and see what happens. Well, we've just got nonsense on the display. The tray isn't opening at all. I couldn't actually see what was happening with that motor, so let's look down here and press the load button again. Well, it's not even turning that cog, is it? Alright, I'm unplugging it. I've seen enough. I just think this needs a serious service. I'm going to try and remove the front panel first of all. It's always a bit different working on a unit that doesn't belong to you. You don't have quite the same freedoms. I'm going to move these side panels as well. Yeah, that's given me access to these two screws for the front. Well, these are just the screws for the rack mounts, but it does also loosen the front panel. Got 4 screws in the bottom. Screws are very loose. Well, I can't attach it completely just yet, but we can see here that this Perspex panel on the transport is illuminated by these incandescent bulbs, one of which is missing. Should be easy enough to replace. And I should mention that all these buttons are very soft to press. They're not the usual clicky tactile type that you get on most CD players. They're more like calculator buttons with a membrane behind them. Almost feels like a computer keyboard. Well, since I can't remove this panel entirely, I think I'm going to just reconnect it for now and focus on removing this transport. It would be helpful to remove this card on the side, and I think it's pretty easy to do that. So just like a PC, you've got a little screw at the back. Should just wiggle out. Wow, there is a lot of corrosion on those pins. You can see how much has come off just from a simple wipe. So that certainly won't have been helping. These machines are notorious for developing bad capacitors. There's a lot of Philips caps on here, which I know are particularly bad. Just going to number all these in case I get in a muddle. And this is just a dream to service. Look how easy that is. There's potential trace damage on here. It looks like something has leaked through, maybe from the top of the case. And again, a lot of corrosion on those connecting pins. You'll notice it has 2 sets of RCA outputs, and that's because it has both a fixed and a variable output. So there's volume control on the front of the machine, and if you're connected to the variable one, you can control the volume from the player itself. And yeah, this stain on the bottom does suggest something has leaked through from the top. We can push the whole transport out from the back here. And yeah, that does not feel smooth. But looking at the teeth on that cog, it doesn't look as though any of them are broken. but they just don't seem to be meshing properly. No limit switches for this transport. Instead, this piece here passes between these optical sensors. There's another one just down here. So when the tray is closed, it breaks that sensor. And it would be helpful to remove this disc clamp. Should just slide out. Maybe I should have slid it out from the back. There we go. Well, that's a pretty bulky motor for a tray mechanism. It was shimmed up on these washers, perhaps to get it to the optimum height. If I disconnect this, which again has very dirty pins, I can pass it through here. I can disconnect the motor from here as well and free it up. You can see there's nothing wrong with the teeth on there. They don't even look worn. So that's not the issue. I think the issue is the motor itself. Yeah, something badly wrong with that. Just undo the little set screw. Just going to put that screw in before I lose it. This could be a big problem actually. This is not an off-the-shelf motor, I don't think. Moving this plate. Ah, it's geared, that's why it was slipping. Maxon DC motor, Swiss made. Well, it ought to run like clockwork. And yeah, that kind of looks like a clock. I think this is where the damaged teeth are, and that's a huge problem. I don't know if you can see in there, but there's actually missing teeth. There's a load of them there. And so it turns so far and then just jams up. Well, what are the chances of getting a replacement one of these? Well, there was a replacement motor on eBay, but only one. And it was eye-wateringly expensive. The motor itself was $40, but the shipping was $47. And if you look how small this is, I know it's big for a motor, but it doesn't weigh much. I don't know how they justified $47 for shipping, but I had no choice really, and as it was the last one, I thought I'd better grab it while I could. The listing did promise that it was an upgrade, that it was quieter and smoother than the original, but I suppose they would say that. The listing also said that these gears are a common failure point because they're plastic. I mean, these outer ones certainly aren't, but this is the broken one, and that is a sort of grey colour. So maybe it is, but why on earth would you make it out of plastic? Well, I looked into this and it's not actually made of plastic, but more of a fiberglass type material. Still, not particularly robust. I mean, it would have been far better if this had been broken because I could repair that. But anyway, it's done now. It'll be a few days delivery and I didn't get permission from the owner. So if he's not willing to pay for it, then that's on me. But now the motor's disconnected, the transport moves pretty smoothly. But I think I am still going to service it. Oh, and I checked the service manual and there is meant to be a spring on this clamp. So I've ordered a spring set from Amazon. Hopefully there'll be one that's suitable. So to remove this rail, there's a circlip on the end here. And then the whole rail slides out the back. And that is officially the chunkiest sled rail I've ever seen. And this bushing for it is pretty filthy. And the other rail has got this spring clip on the back. And that just sort of locks it in place when it's in the closed position. And there's also this adjustment screw where you can fine-tune the closed position. That's quite nice. To fine-screw this spring, because there's this plate on the back that's pressing against the end of the rail. But I do still also need to remove the circlip from this side. And that one is a foot long. I still can't slide the transport out though because this whole thing is one solid piece. I think I need to clean this under running water. This is actually ceramic. Very nice. Again, filthy pins. This is the IR sensor for the remote control. And I love how modular this is. Custom board. Studer is the name of the guy who founded the Revox company. I have to be careful with this because there's connections. And this connector can only go in one way because of a missing pin. And that hole has been blanked off. So if you tried to put it in upside down, it wouldn't fit. Same with these connectors. Got a ribbon cable here to disconnect. Again, makes it feel like a computer. This is like the old IDE connectors. Well, it looks like this capacitor has been replaced, but rather than solder through the board, they've just cut the legs off and resoldered it onto the old legs. A bit strange, given how easy it is to remove the board. So now I've got access to these other two set screws, which have definitely never come out before. It's even got its own sticker and part number on it. Looks like another adjustment screw there. Is that for the clamp? Yeah, that's still not coming out. This really is built like a tank. There's a couple more set screws in the front here. Those ones weren't tight. Just unscrewed the power cord connector at the back. This gives me access to 3 more screws. Also need to unscrew the bulb holder at the front. This should now come out. I can slide this ribbon cable out. And yes, finally. And the build quality of this is just incredible. Now I've got good access to clean these bushings, and I can undo these 3 screws to release the plastic rack. This thing's just a dream to service. Honestly, I think it deserves a $100 motor. Well, these ceramic bushes I am going to clean in situ because they're not too bad. I don't want to break the circlips. I'd say this is probably the dirtiest I've ever got servicing a CD player. Now I've disconnected these, I can finally remove the front panel. And this is one player where you definitely want to keep track of all your screws. Going to give this chassis a good clean. Trouble with having holes in the top cover is everything falls through. That's just corrosion, that's not coming off. And yeah, it's just a membrane keyboard. Those contacts all look really clean though. You can see the buttons have slightly discoloured. UV damage. It looks like these metal buttons can be unclipped. And those are aluminium caps on the plastic. And I know I keep saying it, but it's just beautifully made. And the side's in similarly good condition, as you'd expect. Even this retainer here is a separate piece. Okay, I'm going to give all these parts a good clean in soapy water. Well, while all those parts are drying, I want to clean up all these connectors. Still not sure why these pins have gotten so blackened, but now's the time to sort it out. It does come off very easily. And there's just generally a lot of grime on here, so I'm going to brush these down outside, I think. And you don't need to see me clean all these pins, so I'll do that off camera. I think it's also safe to assume that these optical sensors are dirty. And I'm going to spray contact cleaner in all these sockets as well. So I've cleaned all the connecting pins on all of the cards. And these are the DACs, so it's obviously got twin DACs. TDA 1540p. I believe those are Philips chips, though they're not branded. And as far as DACs go, I believe they're quite highly prized. Well, if there was any doubt about how dirty those connectors were, here's your evidence. Everything I washed is now dry, so I can reassemble, which is going to be a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. Well, these numbers will be easy enough, they're all the same. Pretty unusual to have direct track access on a player this old. Assuming that's what it does. Incidentally, I had a message from the seller of the motor, and apparently that shipping cost was a mistake, so he's going to refund me. He didn't actually say how much it should have been, but he seemed genuinely quite horrified at it, so that's a good sign. Just checking a photo I took, the program and the store buttons are red, and everything else is grey. Yep, they all feel good. And those all feel good too. Now, because electrolytic capacitors are a problem for this player, I'm going to check all of them across all these boards and report back if I find any problems. Well, I've already seen enough. Every single one of these Philips branded light blue capacitors is reading bad. I haven't checked them all, but I've checked probably 10 of them, and when 10 out of 10 are bad, you might as well replace them all. Thankfully, these larger ones are okay, including this Sanyo one, which looks like a replacement anyway. This one here looks like a replacement because the soldering looks different. So that was probably replacing one of these blue ones, but even this one is bad, probably because it's overworking due to the other ones. Well, fortunately there don't seem to be any of those Philips capacitors on the transport itself, so I think I can leave that. So I'm going to try and remove this front acrylic panel because I'd like to give that a clean as well. I have seen on eBay that they make LED replacements for these displays because this is just LCD with no backlight. They look really good, the replacements. I think if this machine belonged to me, I'd be tempted to replace it. And this just unclips. And clean this one with a microfiber cloth. It's in pretty good condition actually. Of course I need to clean the lens while I'm here. I'm just going to clean this ribbon cable because there's a lot of dust in here. Well, I don't think there's anything else I need to do to the transport, so I'm going to get on with replacing those capacitors. So these are the bad Philips capacitors that I've replaced, and I could choose any one of these at random. This one's meant to be 100 microfarad. And it's only 50, and that's typical. They're just wildly out of spec. So hopefully that has improved things. Well, it can't fail to have improved things. So I'm going to reassemble what I can. Obviously I can't fit the motor or the spring, but I think we can still get it back together and test it. All right, gotta remember how this all goes back together now. In fact, before I get too carried away, I need to refit the rack gear. Would have been pretty frustrating if I'd forgotten that. Now I can feed this rod through from the back. It's quite clever that it's held by a single clip. And the second one needs to pass through the ceramic bush. That's nice. Feels very smooth. We've got this bracing bar. I've got these 3 screws in the back. Well, it is smooth, but I'm still going to lubricate it. Oh, that is super smooth. Refit the power connector. This is pretty filthy. Mustn't forget this little spring. And now for refitting the cards. And I did spray contact cleaner in the sockets as well. Actually, before I fit this card, I'm going to insert these plugs. What's that socket for? Was that used? That's for the front panel, isn't it? So I need to feed this. I think I needed to feed this through before fitting card number 1. So that's going to have to come out again. So this feeds in through this hole. Then up and over into here. No, it must come the other side of the card. So I think I need to remove this one as well. I should just refit the front panel first, shouldn't I? Right, so let's try again with card 1. So now the front panel can plug in here. Plug in the ribbon cable. This goes in here. And finally there's this piece here which triggers the optical sensors. I can also refit the rack mounts. I've washed these end panels too. Okay, let's see where we are. Oh, you know what I haven't done? I forgot to plug the transformer in. That goes in here. Okay, let's try that again. We still have nonsense on the display. That's a bit worrying. So I'm going to simulate the tray motor. I'm not entirely sure what year this was. I think it originally came out in 1984, but let's say 1985, which means we can go with a bit of the Cure. So I'll press the load button again. Well, appears to be playing. I don't think it does read the table of contents automatically. You have to press play after loading it. A couple of segments of that display do look a bit dim. Let's hook it up to the amplifier. Or perhaps these aren't direct track access. Or perhaps, are these the skip buttons? No. That's fast forward. Oh, that's pause. It's funny how the display doesn't go directly to 0 when you skip the track. It sort of randomizes. I'm going to mute that before I get done for copyright, and the display button only shows the total disk time elapsed and the track time elapsed. Doesn't show remaining time. So I wonder why we had all that gobbledygook when I first turned it on. And are these buttons purely for programming? But it's strange that it doesn't give you direct track access. I guess they never thought of that. But you can see those ghost segments on the display, so something isn't right. And I think if I were to press load again, the display would turn off. Yeah, it turns off when it ejects the disk. And yeah, it does nothing when it loads it. So I'm pretty happy with things so far. I just need to wait for that motor to arrive. And I've also ordered a couple of green light bulbs for the front. But I'm wondering if I can do anything with that display. Maybe there's a bad capacitor on that board. I saw a forum post about these Revox LCDs, and it said that sometimes they need to be reflowed. And although I can't see any bad joints, it wouldn't hurt to do that. All these other components seem to be fine. I couldn't get a reading out of this ceramic capacitor, but that might just be because it has a low capacitance. Sometimes my meter won't pick it up. These connections here look very crusty as well. Right, let's turn it on again. Well, it's still nonsense, but it's slightly more coherent nonsense. It is changing when I wiggle the wires, so that does suggest a bad connection. Maybe I'll just reflow everything on here. Right, I've reflowed everything now, and it's certainly a lot better, but it's still flickering slightly. Maybe I should replace that capacitor. Has that improved it? At least it's not giving us nonsense anymore. It's been a few days and the parts have arrived, and the motor came with this note saying that the mounting holes do not match up with the existing holes. So it's given me a template in order to drill the bracket, which is fine, but it didn't give me the screws, so I'll have to see if I've got some of those. But first I'll need to swap over these leads and this capacitor. That's the easy bit. Okay, I've marked the holes according to the template, and fortunately I found 4 screws with the correct thread size to screw into the motor end. Okay, I've drilled the new holes, and it looks like they line up okay. They do indeed. That feels very secure. So now I need to attach the gear. And to fit this, I'm going to remove the disc clamp again because it's just in the way. I've got all these shim washers to refit. I'm going to loosen this screw. I think it's meant to push down on here to mesh these gears better. So I think both these cables were fed through this hole and this hole. Now we can refit the clamp. And the new spring. I had to estimate the length of this, but I think it'll work. And finally, before I test it, fitting the new bulbs. Alright, let's give it a test. So, will the new motor work? Remember, it doesn't spin the disc up until you press play. Well, it's too bright in here to see those green lights, but they are working. Well, that listing for the motor said it was much quieter than the original. If that's true, I can't imagine how bad the original was. And since the disc clamp comes up quite high when the tray is open, they put this piece of foam on the top cover to stop it hitting against the metal. This player is best appreciated in a darkened room where its gentle green glow becomes more apparent. I really enjoyed working on this one, and that Philips CDM 1 transport is so robust that it could last for several more years yet. Having read the manual, it turns out that the number buttons do give direct track access. You just have to press play after selecting your track, but the display gives no indication of this until playback begins. A big thanks to Greg for sending me this unit, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.